going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast, presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImmacSports.
Instagram is also at ImmacSports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 199, one more away from the big 200. And we got a pretty good one today. A lot of cool stuff happened this weekend, especially in the NBA here with free agency just opening up Sunday night, I think it was officially, and the draft, of course, before that. But also some good baseball stuff, Kyle.
Yeah, we had a full week of games within baseball. We had one big debut that we've had this past week, and I guess that leads me right into my opener, where it was the James Wood MLB debut. Something that's always fun to do is watch the first game for a prospect when they come up. And James Wood's one of those bigger prospects this year that we've gotten to see. We got to see Jackson Holliday. We got to see Paul Skeens. Now we finally get to see the third overall prospect in James Wood make his debut yesterday for the Washington Nationals. It's an interesting day in the MLB where there's only 3 games since they want to all be able to play on Thursday when 4th of July is. They didn't really have any series start on Monday except for the Blue Jays playing on Canada Day, plus a couple other games. One of those games was the Nationals game, though. James Wood hit 6 against the Mets in his debut. Got a base hit, his first at-bat, hit a line drive over 105 miles per hour off the bat. Kind of like the ideal thing for him, where he's just this big, strong, lanky, fast dude that's going to hit the ball really hard. And he did that in his first at-bat. He also showed off his speed later in the game when he beat out a ball back to the pitcher, and Jake Diekman couldn't get over to first in time, or he tried to get over to first in time, ended up throwing it away. I thought he would have been safe regardless. They ended up ruling it in air, so he didn't get a hit for that, but still, power and the speed were on display in day one for him. And it's really cool to see because this is a Nationals team that's kind of surprised a lot of people this year, and I know they didn't get the win yesterday, but still a fun team to watch, and now they have, potentially their next big piece up in the big league roster.
Yeah, I'm excited for James Wood, too. It's endless amounts of possibility when you combine that size, that power, also with speed. The best thing I saw, I think I'm going to stick with the NBA draft here. We're not going to have the time to go through every pick, but just as a whole experience this weekend in NBA was awesome because going into this thing, there weren't a lot of big names available for free agency or even in the draft, but Atlanta kicks it off. Reese actually goes number 1. So that was pretty interesting. And then they end up trading DeJounte Murray, and we'll get into that. Rob Dillingham goes to the Spurs, back-to-back point guards, but they trade him to Minnesota. So a small shooter with Ant, that's kind of what they're looking for. Good for them. And, of course, Zach Edey going in the top 10 is pretty crazy, but I'm excited to see what happens there.
Yeah, it's definitely I would say it was like a boring draft. I thought it was pretty hectic with the stuff going on. There's a lot of not a lot of stardom, obviously, with the original look of the class, but you never know. That's why these things are so exciting. You get a couple new players on your team practically for free, and there's a lot of unknown with these guys. So it's a pretty fun thing to watch every single year, even if the class isn't touted as one of the best that we've seen in a long time. Anyways, moving on, though, to our player, pitcher, rookie of the week that we do every single week here on our show. And we'll start off with the player of the week. Skyler, who did you choose here?
I'm going to go with Gavin Stone. Yes, it was against the White Sox, like all of the great pitching numbers come from this season. But the youngster threw a complete game shutout with 7 strikeouts and no walks, 103 pitches. That's nice. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Renifo hitting the crap out of the ball, and even George Springer just homered too a couple minutes ago. So good for him. Maybe a resurgence.
Yeah. My player of the week, it did end up going with Vladdy Jr. He went 8 for 17, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 10 RBIs, and a pretty competitive series against the Yankees over the weekend. I thought that was pretty fun to watch. And just kind of the narrative that he's had around his game this year and past year. I like Vladdy, and I like when he's able to shut him up. So Vladdy's my player of the week.
So back-to-back winner for you.
Did he win last week too? Harper won last week.
Oh, that's what.
Harper won last week. Close. On the pitcher of the week, though, Skyler, who do you got?
I'm going to give a shout out to my guy Grant Holmes. Some awesome work out of the bullpen, and former a guy who we didn't think would make it, but really it's got to be Gavin Stone again. The complete game, just crazy. A guy who I mentioned it all the time. We joked about him for a Rookie of the Year spot, and obviously now with Paul Skeens and others, probably won't happen. But just an awesome rookie season.
Yeah. Also, something crazy with Gavin Stone. I think it's or not Gavin Stone with Grant Holmes. I think it's just funny in baseball how like a guy can get cut from one of the worst rosters in the MLB, and then within the next year go and be playing and pitching well for a team that's very much in the playoff race in the National League in the Atlanta Braves. So it's just cool to see how the sport works out like that. And Grant Holmes is a perfect example of it. My pitcher of the week, though, is not going to be Gavin Stone. I'm going to go with Christopher Sanchez for his complete game shutout against the Marlins last week. 3 hits, no walks, and 9 strikeouts. Again, it's not against the craziest team. It's against the Marlins, but Christopher Sanchez has been great this year, and I think he deserved to get the nod for that one. Rookie of the week.
Jackson Chourio hit his first Grand Slam this week, and it was a pretty epic moment. But Kyle, do you know how many years Gavin Stone has been in the league?
Including this one or before this one?
Years of service time.
Point something. 0.
So that makes him a rookie. That's right. We got our first Tyler Gilbert Award winner in years. I felt like I had to do it. There weren't a lot of power numbers. Maybe I'm being overrated to the contact guys this week, but that's a rookie pitcher, player of the week. It rarely happens, but I thought this would be the perfect week to shout out Gavin Stone.
Taking down the Immaculate Sports Triple Crown, so to speak. My rookie of the week, of course, is going to be Gavin Stone, too, for his complete game shutout. Just ridiculous stuff, man. It's good to see guys go 9 innings and be able to shut guys out. It doesn't happen too often in our game anymore. So when it does happen, you got to give them credit.
Mm-hmm.
On to our power rankings that we do bi-weekly now at this point. We didn't do them last week, of course, so we're back onto it this week. Skylar, do you have anybody who didn't make the list that you wanted to give a shout out to, or whatever?
Yeah, the Pirates and the Giants will be dropping out of the list this week. Just some horrible late game play from those two squads.
My only team that has dropped off for me was the Washington Nationals. Rough week. They got swept by the Padres and played some disappointing baseball over the weekend as well, too. So they just missed my rankings. Maybe in following weeks, though, they could be back up depending on how they play the trade deadline. On to 15.
All right, 15 is going to be the Tampa Bay Rays. I believe this is their first time on the list for me. I would say they were about 20 last week. I didn't fully write it out, but it's a good estimation. But just a really good stretch for a team we all assume would be selling off most of their good pieces. And, well, they still can, but they just had an 8-4 2-week stretch. They won series against Washington, Seattle, Pittsburgh, and Minnesota. That shouldn't go unnoticed.
Yeah. My number 15 team is going to be the same number 15 team I had last time, and that's the New York Mets. They've stayed hot over the last 2 weeks, got it back to 500 at 41-41. In the past 2 weeks, took 2 out of 3 from Texas, 2 out of 3 from the Cubs, swept the Yankees in a mini Subway Series, a 2-gamer, and then lost 2 out of 3 versus Houston over the weekend. A very, very good Houston Astros squad over the past couple of weeks. And then they won the opener last night in Washington. The vibes right now for this team, though, are incredible. They have Grimace at every single game. They have Jose Iglesias singing after a Friday night W. It's just crazy the stuff that's going on with that team right now. And usually the Mets are completely dysfunctional or completely in rhythm, and they are completely in rhythm right now, and it's fun to watch. Number 14.
14, I'm going to go with the Cardinals here. They're down 1 spot, but they've been okay, 7-5 in that time. And they're ranked 13th in OPS and a lot of different things. So I think we found their range finally. It's always tough to find those NL wildcard spots, but they do get jumped by another really hot team who we'll get into. But I think this is a good spot for them.
Yeah, I also have the Cardinals at my number 14 spot. They moved down from number 12 in our last rankings for me. 43-40, so 3 games over 500, and they had a weird couple of weeks where they swept the Giants, series W over the Atlanta Braves, then split 4 with Cincy, and also lost a series to Miami within that time. So you pretty much had the good, the bad, and the ugly within there. So what do? Just slightly move them down. I think this team is better than what we expected at the beginning of the season, and over the past month, they've kind of impressed me. I think they got to a point where it's like we kind of just got fatigued with them, where it's just like, oh yeah, they're just kind of going to be mid now at this point. And they finally woken up. They got some good starting pitching. They have a good bullpen, and they have some bats that should be heating up once the weather gets warm right about now. Number 13.
13, I got the Red Sox down from 11. Tanner Houck just had his first pretty bad blow-up start, but they haven't been as bad as you would think. 6-4 in that span. Still only a game and a half back at Kansas City for a wild card, so they're still in the hunt.
Yeah. My number 13 team is also going to be the Boston Red Sox. They're down 2 spots from my last rankings as well, sitting at 44-39. For the past 2 weeks, they took 4 out of 5 from Toronto in a weird, like, 2-series scenario situation. They lost a series to the Padres and also won a series against the Cincinnati Reds. I think they have a slight edge up on most of the AL wildcard contender teams, and I think it's also another one of those like vibe things. Where I think I talked about it before. They just feel like kind of a band of misfits right now at that roster, and I think it helps them out quite a bit. The only problem is I just don't think they're going to be that aggressive at the deadline because if you're a GM and you see that, you have some guys kind of outperforming their expected numbers. Probably gives an indication that things might cool down in the second half, and I think Boston could be maybe even looking at selling once we get to that late July mark. Number 12.
Number 12 is where I got the Royals, only down 3 spots from last time, but it sort of feels like they're free falling right now. Their .218 batting average over the last 2 weeks has been worse than the A's. I can't really say I'm surprised. It's a much tougher division than anyone thought. They just can't really seem to score any runs, especially on the road. They're 6 games under 500 on the road this year, and I don't like their lineup projection right now.
Yeah. We're on the same page here. I also have Kansas City as my number 12 team. They moved down 2 spots from our last ranking. Still 47-39, so solid record. They had series W's over Miami and Cleveland, but they lost 5 out of 6 against Oakland and Texas. Not this past week, but the week before that. Like you said, this team doesn't I wouldn't say free falling in my opinion. I think it's more of just like they just seem so stagnant right now. There is no effort to they're not pushing more and more. Like good teams, like they're continuously good throughout the season. The 8 games that they've been over 500, they've been like over 500 at 8 games for like 2 months now at this point. Like they haven't been playing better than 500 ball in the past 60 to 90 days. I think that needs to happen now. So Kansas City moves down a little bit. I'm just kind of, I guess, fatigued with them as well too.
Yeah.
Number 11,
I'm going to go with the Mariners. Not a great stretch, falling down from the 7th spot. They haven't won a series since they swept Texas on June 16th. You just can't trust teams that don't hit for this long of a stretch. And I finally bumped them out of the top 10.
Yeah. My number 11 team is my only unranked team from our last rankings. It's the Houston Astros. They're over 500, 43-41. Past 2 weeks were impressive. Series wins against the White Sox and at the New York Mets. And then they swept Colorado and Baltimore. The team just looks really good right now. The bullpen is solid, and the lineup is completely firing. Right now they're losing 7-0 to the Toronto Blue Jays, but maybe they'll come back. You never know. It just looks like the same old Astros from the last 7 years over these past 2 weeks. They've been really, really good. And I think it's scaring probably the Rangers because they've been pretty shit, but definitely the Mariners because they are right on the heels, and we got a lot of baseball to play. Number 10.
Yeah, here's where I have the Astros. I had 19 as my approximation for where they were, so that's a +9, biggest by far. Here they come. It was only a matter of time before they hit a streak like this, 10-2 over the past 2 weeks. The young pitchers, especially, Arrighetti, Hunter Brown, they've been awesome this month compared to the 5 ERA numbers they were putting up before. They're also relatively healthy. So, like you said, I'm really worried if I'm an M's fan going forward.
Yeah. My number 10 team is going to be the San Diego Padres. Moving up 4 spots from our last rankings, 46 and 42. They have series wins over Milwaukee and at Boston over this past weekend. They also swept the Washington Nationals. That was a pretty contentious series that we saw with Jerks and Profar, Jesse Winker, all having some words with each other. But they did lose 2 out of 3 versus Philly, which is expected because Philadelphia is a damn good team. But this team just feels like that number 5 spot in the National League. Number 4 seems like it's going to be Atlanta, or if Philly somehow chokes and Philly goes into that 4 spot. The number 5 spot now really feels like it's going to be San Diego's spot to lose because their roster just is better than all these other teams that are competing for that last spot, or second to last spot too.
Yeah.
Number 9.
Number 9, I do have the Twins. I will mention, though, I just saw Spencer Arrighetti throw a wild pitch and another run came in right after I said that he was doing a great job this month. So my bad, guys. I think that was
his ERA is back over 6 now, Skyler.
Oh, perfect. But let's talk about the Twins. They're up 1 spot after winning 3 series in a row. Minnesota has a lot of right-handed power and starters that go deep into games. Those guys have really stepped up down the stretch. Lopez, Ober, Joe Ryan, lights out since we talked about them being possible busts for the season last week. So they're back on the right track.
My number 9 team is going to be the Atlanta Braves. 46 and 36 right now. Series wins versus the New York Yankees, versus Pittsburgh, and also swept Detroit. They lost 2 out of 3 to St. Louis, which I kind of mentioned earlier, and then they lost a standalone game against the Chicago White Sox, which was a makeup game from a series back in April that one of the games got rained out. Not any notes on the team, but just listen to this crazy stretch that they went through this past week. They played 2 games on the 26th in St. Louis because on the 25th, their game was rained out, so they had to do a doubleheader on the 26th. The next day, they fly to Chicago and play the White Sox in a standalone game. They lose 1-0. And then the very next day, they fly back to Atlanta and open up a 3-game series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So 4 games in 3 days in 3 different cities is pretty crazy to think about. They've done a lot of flying recently. Now I believe they're kind of on a home stretch here for a little bit, up 2-0 against the Giants right now. I like this team a lot. They don't move up or down in my rankings at all, but I think it's coming for this team. I think the lineup is now starting to heat up. Number 8.
Number 8, I got the Padres up 4 spots from 12. They've been one of those teams this year that either goes up 7 or goes down 8, but I think they're finally found their spot too, like we talked about with the Cardinals. Awesome 2-week stretch, 9 and 3. They fucked Boston, Washington, and Milwaukee shit up last week, over 800 OPS. And I think you're right. They are that very next team in the National League. I just have them a little higher than the other AL teams.
But my number 8 team is going to be the Seattle Mariners. They moved down 2 spots from the number 6 ranking that I had them at 2 weeks ago. Still 47 and 39, same record as I want to say Kansas City. But it's been a rough 2 weeks. They lost all 4 series that they played within the last 2. That includes Cleveland, Miami, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota. The lineup is, like you said, back to sucking really, really bad. Like they're going through a prolonged stretch where it's not like a slump. It's just this lineup is bad. And I know I saw reports that they are expected to be active early in the trade deadline stuff and looking for a bat and some bullpen help, just like every contending team. But if you're going to win the division, you have to go get that bat right now. You can't wait around because every single day that you wait and score 2 runs and lose a game 2-3 when your starting pitcher gets a quality start, you're going to lose the division by doing that. And if you lose the division, you make it that much tougher on you to win the World Series. So go get a guy right now. Do it right now. Don't wait until the weekend.
said he's already open to leaving, right?
Exactly.
Just get him.
Go get whoever you need to get to make that lineup better. Because you know you're a contending team, but you can't waste this period again. Number 7.
Number 7, I got the Brew Crew up from 10. Milwaukee finally gets that big +3 from me. 8 and 5 over the last 2 weeks. And they Yes. 8-5. Right team. Perfect. Finally starting to separate themselves as well. That's why they're up here, up in the top 10, getting themselves to 50 wins very quickly with a fun youth movement filled with power, speed, and filth.
No.
Sorry, my eyes.
Number 7. Number 7 for me is going to be the Minnesota Twins. I don't move them at all from my last rankings. They're sitting at 47 and 37 right now. Series wins against Oakland, Arizona, and Seattle. Their only series loss was against Tampa Bay in a pretty contested series about a week and a half ago. The lineup is as healthy as it's been the entire season. Whether it's Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa, they're all playing baseball right now, which is great to see. And they're starting to get better results from the pitchers that they relied on going into the season, like Bailey Ober and Pablo Lopez. I like this team a lot. I've talked about it numerous times, and I think they're very reasonably so within the top 7 of my rankings. Number 6.
Number 6, I got the Braves sticking pat here. They've been 6 for basically 2 months for me now. It's been streaky for sure, but they just won another series in the Bronx. I think they deserve to stay in this range, despite never really going on that big win streak like some of the other teams. Over the next 2 weeks, they'll host Philly, go to Arizona, go to San Diego, and then host St. Louis. Another pretty great. I think you had mentioned something about Atlanta's schedule a minute ago, actually.
Yeah.
But pretty nuts. Continuing too.
Mm-hmm. My number 6 team is going to be the Milwaukee Brewers, though. They move up 2 spots from our last rankings. 50 and 35, like you said, they got to 50 wins. They had series wins over at not Atlanta. The Angels, the Cubs. They swept the Texas Rangers, but they did lose 3 out of 4 to the Padres, who have been a hot team. So I'm not come too far down for that. Solid couple of weeks, but they still need starting pitching in my mind because the guy that's starting tonight for them is none other than Dallas Keuchel, and you do not want that guy starting games
for $1.
So. Exactly. Yeah, don't have that guy starting games for you, please. And if you don't, then you should be good. Number 5.
Number 5, we got the Guardians. Also staying pat at 5. These guys are still killing it. I thought the bats would cool off by now, but they're still top 10 in everything from batting average to OPS. Seth Lugo is the only guy that really slowed them down when I was looking through their past couple starts. They have been putting up a ridiculous amount of runs.
My number 5 team is going to be the Dodgers. They moved down 1 spot. They're still 52 and 33. They had series W's over the Colorado Rockies. They swept the White Sox and split a 2-game series with the Angels and lost the series against the Giants this past weekend. They don't have Mookie right now, which sucks. But they still have Shohei. They still have Freddie Freeman. They still have Will Smith. They still have all these pitchers. I didn't really expect them to have – I mean, I know this isn't a bad period technically because they did, win 7 out of 8 or something like that against Colorado and Chicago, but they just don't feel like the Dodgers right now. And we're so used to them going on these stretches in summertime where they just win a ridiculous amount of games over a short amount of time, and they haven't hit that yet. And so until they do, they're going to be down a little bit on my rankings. At number 5. Who's your number 4?
Number 4 is going to be the Yankees. They're down 1 spot because, oh man, did they struggle this week. Getting swept by the Mets. It was only 2, but was really rough to watch. They gave up a ton of runs to the last place Blue Jays over the weekend. And this obviously isn't a finished product. This is another team. You got to imagine they're going to be in the market for a Josh Bell, Andrew Vaughn, Brent Rooker, because Ben Rice and Trent Grisham are not getting the job done.
My number 4 team is also the New York Yankees. They moved down 3 spots from the original top spot 2 weeks ago, 54 and 32, but they had no series wins over the past 2 weeks. Series lost to Baltimore and Atlanta. They got swept by the Mets in that short 2-game series and then split a series in Toronto over the weekend. The vibe just seems off right now, and I know that's like a weird thing to mention where it's just like I always keep on going to the vibe, but the vibe is so big within your ball club that it really determines if you're playing good or not. Outside of Judge and Soto, they just have nothing going for them right now. The starting pitching does not seem as dominant as what it was to begin the season. And it's weird because this is now a time that they just got Garrett Cole back, and it's not that Cole's been bad, but the other guys aren't picking up the level as much. They're down 5-0 right now against the Cincinnati Reds. They just don't look good. I think it surprised me. I will say that because I didn't see them going into this sort of slump. But they moved down 3 spots in my rankings. Number 3.
I got the Orioles. They're up 1 spot here, back above the Yankees. A very average 6-7 stretch, but hey, it was better than the Yankees week. They won the series in Baltimore against the Yankees, I believe. Was that the series?
They won in New York, and then I know they took 3 out of 4 over the weekend against Texas.
Okay, that's probably what it was. But they got swept by Cleveland, so I have to keep them here. They're not going above the others.
Cleveland is my number 3 team. They move up 2 spots from my last rankings where they were at number 5. 52-30 is the second best record in the American League. Like you said, good couple of weeks. Series wins over the Seattle Mariners. Series win in Baltimore was big. They did sweep Toronto, but they did lose 3 out of 4 to Kansas City in kind of a confusing series over this past weekend. But it's a very Guardians type team right now where it's just tough to get them out. They have a good bullpen, and they're finally getting some power from this lineup, which is awesome to see. I just hope that they go get a starting pitcher at the deadline. I don't like Tuki Carrasco and Tristan McKenzie starting games for you in 2024, but maybe they'll figure it out or something like that. I know Gavin Williams is supposed to make his season debut tomorrow, which is pretty cool. So if he can stay healthy, that just gives him an all-star caliber pitcher just like that. But I like the Cleveland Guardians a lot right now, and that's why they're number 3. Number 2.
Number 2, I got the Phils. Another all right stretch, very similar to Atlanta, going 7-5 with a weird schedule. So maybe they're heading into the All-Star break on cruise control, which is okay. Obviously, they're still at the 2 spot. You don't need to force any injuries to the starting pitching. Just make it to the end of July. We'll see what happens.
The Phillies are also my number 2 team. They move up 1 spot from our last rankings. 55-29 is the best record within the MLB. Solid couple of weeks where they got series wins against San Diego, Arizona, and Detroit, and then split a 4-gamer with Miami. Only reason why they're not the number 1 team is because Harper and Schwarber are out until at least the All-Star break, and so you can expect this team to maybe take a slight step back during that 2, 3, 4 week stretch maybe. Number 1,
I still got the Dodgers. Yeah, I'm keeping them at the top again. Like I said last week, I'm okay with their vibe right now because they didn't really have to do anything special yet. A mediocre schedule. They went 7-4, and that's good for 3rd in baseball during that time, even with the injuries. And it's another team, they just got to make it to the All-Star break, and then we'll figure it out afterwards because they still have to figure out a lot of infield positions, and we're pretty deep into the season right now.
Yeah. Number 1 for me is going to be the Baltimore Orioles. They move up 1 spot from our last rankings. 53-31 is a great record. Second or first in the American League as of right now. Series wins against the Yankees and the Texas Rangers, but they did lose 2 out of 3 against Cleveland and got swept by Houston last week, or not last weekend, but the weekend before that. I still think this team is the best team in the league, dude. Like they're only going to get better as time goes. You got to imagine that they're going to do something this deadline with all the prospects that they have to make this team better. And I think we're just seeing the beginning. So give me Baltimore as a number 1 team. Moving on from our power rankings, though, we have a ton of different free agents and trades in the NBA that we got to grade. But first, I got to go over all the different things that did happen that we aren't going to grade. Most likely just extensions, some smaller trades. Starting off, Jason Tatum, 5-year super max to stay with the Boston Celtics. I believe that is over $300 million, which is pretty crazy. Derek White also got a 4-year extension. I know they love that there in Boston. Reggie Jackson goes to the Hornets in a trade. And then for the Bulls, we saw Patrick Williams sign a 5-year deal to return to them, which is kind of crazy. For the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell inked a 3-year extension. That was something that was a big question with them because of Kenny Atkinson He is their now head coach. You're thinking maybe it's Donovan Mitchell. You can say, hey, I don't want to be on a team that just got a new coach. Maybe has a feeling out process for a year or two while I'm in my prime. He says, fuck it, I'm going to stay 3 years, and does that.
The Warriors literally just replaced Kenny Atkinson about 10 seconds ago. Terry Stotts.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Former head coach for the Blazers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. For those Dame and McCollum teams, too, I think. On to Detroit. No longer can't have shit in Detroit because they have Cade Cunningham for 5 more years. They also made some other moves that we'll talk about in a little bit. The Golden State Warriors, we will probably grade these two. I didn't have these on our list, but we talked about them a little bit. Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton get deals, so we can hit back on that once we get to the end of our grades. Houston Rockets, Aaron Holiday returned on a 2-year deal, which is a solid role player for them. For the Pacers, they had a couple big extensions. Pascal Siakam on a 4-year deal and Obi Toppin on a 4-year deal. They also just signed James Wiseman this morning to a 2-year deal. One of the, guys that went super high in the draft not too long ago. Maybe he still has something in the tank for them. The Lakers got Max Christie back on a 4-year deal. I didn't even realize he was ready for free agency yet. I think that's pretty crazy to say that he's already getting a 4-year deal. Miami Heat, Kevin Love returns on a 2-year deal. Good for him. It feels like he should be about ready to retire, though. Timberwolves, Luka Garza, again, how is he a free agent? 2-year deal to return back to the Timberwolves. The Knicks, they have a move that we'll talk about later, but also OG Anunoby returns on a 5-year deal. It feels like the Knicks are one of those teams right now that have way too many contracts for the salary cap, but somehow it's working. We'll maybe get into that a little bit later when we talk about their move that they made. The OKC Thunder had a couple of players get some big deals. Isaiah Joe on a 4-year deal and Aaron Wiggins on a 5-year deal. That's actually ridiculous. But he returns back to the Thunder there. The Orlando Magic, Goga Beatsdale. I always mess up his last name because I never fucking say it because he's irrelevant, but he agrees to a 3-year deal back with them. And then Jonathan Isaac got a 5-year deal to return back to the Magic as well, too. Hopefully he stays healthy for once. 76ers, they made a couple big moves, but Tyrese Maxey did come back on a 5-year extension. And Kelly Oubre returns on a 2-year deal there. The Kings got Malik Monk, who was a big scorer for them last year, returning on a 4-year deal there. The Raptors had Scotty Barney, or a.k.a. Scotty Barnes, returning on a 5-year deal there. Also, Emmanuel Quickley got his 5 years to return back to Toronto. And that's kind of where we are at right now. A lot of the big names have signed. I know DeMar DeRozan is one of the big ones that hasn't happened yet. But we got a ton of different ones to go over as we get into it in the next few minutes. Starting off with a trade that we saw, which was Josh Giddey going to the Chicago Bulls for Alex Caruso. Back to the OKC Thunder. I believe that was just a 1-for-1 trade when I was looking up. I didn't think there was any picks or anything like that. Not too often that we see that in the NBA. Skyler, what are your grades for each of the teams in this?
Yeah, I think OKC is going to be the clear winner so far here with an A. After they lost to Minnesota in the playoffs, it seemed like they only had 2 issues they had to go figure out how to fix. Getting some real perimeter defense that's not Lou Dort, and Chet developing his outside scoring. And one of them they can control right now. So they traded for a guy by giving up someone they were already fading out of the offense before the controversy. However, I still think it's going to be okay for the Bulls. I gave it a B. I thought the return could have been much worse. It could have been similar to the Clay sign-in trade. So to get a player out of it, it's pretty good. I just don't think anyone wanted Giddey for, again, it's a non-basketball issue. But if you can get past that, it's a cheap contract, a guy who's comparable to Lonzo Ball, who they have been trying to get onto the court, who can't his entire Bulls career. So there you go.
Yeah. I give OKC an A- for this deal. Like you said, this addresses the needs pretty much exactly with Caruso. You need a guy that can play defense, and you need a guy that can shoot a little bit, and that's exactly what Caruso can do off the bench for you. And then getting Giddey, for the Bulls, I don't think is the worst thing. I think he's a guy that can, run an offense. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to score a lot for you, but he could be a decent point guard off the bench. I think that's hopefully exactly what they're asking him to do. And if it is, I give it a B there. But OKC gets an A- for me, and they win that trade. Next up is probably the biggest name-wise one, the biggest, I wouldn't say shocker at this point, but just crazy to see it happen. It's Klay Thompson going to Dallas on a 3 years for $50 million deal. Skylar, what do you think about this?
I'm going to give Dallas a B plus. We all know Clay's on his last legs here, way beyond that even too. But he's going to be replacing Tim Hardaway Jr. minutes, a guy who they refused to play in the finals because they didn't trust his jumper. So at least you have shot confidence going way up with Klay Thompson on the court here for Dallas.
Yeah, I give it an A. I really like this deal for Klay Thompson. I also really like it for the Dallas Mavericks. I think it's a lot of people are saying, you're getting Ray Allen pretty much at this point. I think he's a bit better than that. He's a better defensive player than what Ray Allen was at this point in his career. And probably, I would say a better shooter, but he's comparable in that aspect as well, too, at this point right now. But you get the experience, which I think is the biggest thing. I know Kyrie's been there in big moments, and he's probably helping Luka through this, but I mean, Clay's got as much experience as anybody in the entire league when it comes down to it. 4 finals, been to 7 or 6 at this point as well too. So I like it a lot. I don't think the money's bad either. I give it an A. Next up, this one's not getting an A for me. It's Tobias Harris going to the Detroit Pistons on a 2-year, $52 million deal.
So I am going to give it the same grade as Klay Thompson, a B plus. Here's the thing about Detroit. They have no shooting on the entire roster. And if you don't spend money in free agency, you don't get it back like in some other sports. So I'm happy that they did something. That's why it's a B plus. Not necessarily Tobias, because he's coming in just to be a veteran, and that's a lot of money for a veteran scorer, but maybe these guys can eventually figure out how to score someday, taking some tips from a volume shooter himself, Tobias Harris.
Yeah. I give it a D. I do not like this move. I think if you were going to go spend money on someone, spend it on someone younger and someone that's just strictly 3-and-D. I don't think Tobias Harris is the guy that you would need to fill that role for you. Also because he has very little return trade value. There's been so many times in the past few years where Tobias Harris has been, in a trade rumor or something like that, and it's just never happened, and that's because of a reason. There's not just, it's just not happening because it's not happening. There's definitely things behind that, and it's Detroit. What's the upside in signing this guy? You are gonna suck anyways. Still, might as well suck with young dudes rather than sucking with old dudes. Moving on, Derek Jones to the Clippers on a 3-year, $30 million deal.
I'm going to give this one a B for the Clippers. I think this is as close as you can get to replacing Paul George in such a weak pool of players here. A legit 3-and-D weapon in the playoffs for Dallas. I just think this Clippers thing is going to collapse horribly while he's there. So that's going to knock down his value a bit.
I like Derek Jones, and I think this 3-and-D type move are players that people need on their teams really badly in this era of basketball. I give it a B plus. I think the money is solid as well. 2, 3 for 30. Giving him 10 a year, I think is exceptionally good for a guy that probably could even start for you when you need. And so I give it a B plus. I think it's a solid deal. Next one is Kevin Porter Jr. also going to the Clippers. It's a 2-year deal, I believe, with an option. No clue what the money is. I couldn't find that at all. Obviously, there's nothing really wrong with the player. It's the character. Skylar, how do you think this goes?
Yeah, I don't really know what to say here, Kyle. I have a C right now. This could either be an A plus or an F, though, depending on what happens in that first season. Yeah, it's probably a smart move to bet on him over Westbrook, but it comes with a lot of question marks. We won't get into all of them, but one of them is a big one. He didn't play in the NBA last year. He played in Greece. I'm just afraid this entire locker room is going to fall apart before they even go on a playoff run, and he wouldn't be coming back if that happened.
Yeah, this This move is interesting because the Clippers are not afraid to give people second chances. We saw Kai Jones get a deal with them last year. We saw Bones Highland after his altercation with the Nuggets. I forget exactly what it was, but he did something that wasn't really well he liked there. He got shipped to the Clippers as well too. And now they signed KPJ, so they're not afraid to take a risk if it means that it could really help out their team. I don't know if it's desperation or if it's just believing in the good in people, whatever it is. I give it a C. Like you said, it's really tough to grade right now because we have no clue how this is going to go. Next up, we got a trade. It is DeJounte Murray going to the Pelicans. The return back for DeJounte Murray going to Atlanta is Larry Nance, Dyson Daniels, the Australian, I want to say, right?
Yeah.
And then a 2025 first from the Lakers, a 2027 first, which is the worst of either Milwaukee or the Pelicans. So, Skyler, what are your grades for these two teams?
We'll start with New Orleans. They get an A, of course. I love it. I love DeJounte Murray going there. They couldn't trust Brandon Ingram at all last season, so they go out and get a guy who loves taking that last shot and won't go bitch and moan on the bench during crunch time. Atlanta, on the other hand, I'm going to give it a D. They're lucky I really like Dyson Daniels because a lot of people have this as an F. Trae Young must have been going for pennies if they were this quick to get rid of DeJounte Murray. And this is another fucked situation that I want no part in because if Rissache gets left out there by himself, he's going to lose all his confidence and bust out because most 18-year-olds don't have that kind of confidence to deal with this. And that goes for Dyson Daniels too, who's 21 only.
Yeah. I give New Orleans an A for this. This, like you said, is the perfect guy that they need for the issue that they were trying to solve, and that's guys that are going to take and make big shots from late in game. I think we saw DeJounte Murray have buzzer beaters in back-to-back games last year or something like that. And now you have, I guess you can consider it a big four with him, McCollum, Ingram, and Zion Williamson. I think it's a solid four. And if you build around that and get some solid bench pieces, then I definitely think you're looking at a pretty damn good team when it's all said and done in New Orleans. So I give it an A there. For Atlanta, I don't hate this package because I think DeJounte Murray, when looking at what the Spurs got for him, I'm pretty sure it's pretty small as well too. So maybe just kind of how the trades are. Maybe the next trade will change our opinions on that because it was a lot different than this. But regardless, I give it a C. I like Dyson Daniels. I don't think he's going to be a terrible guy to get. I think the pick from the Lakers isn't going to be ridiculously bad either. And then Larry Nance is just a throw-in, so whatever there. I give it a B. I think it's an effort for the Hawks to try to start over, and I think this is the first part of doing that. Next up is Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks. The Villanova Wildcats, rejoined together now in New York. It was Mikal and I believe like a second rounder or something like that going to the Knicks. But Brooklyn got back. It's Bojan Bogdanovic. And stay with me here. It's a 25, 27, 29, and 31 first-round picks, a pick swap in 2028, and a top four protected 2025 Milwaukee first-rounder, and then also a 2025 second-rounder as well, too. A lot for Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
Skyler, what are your grades?
The Knicks are going to get an A- from me. I completely get it. I understand what's going on here. This is their only shot at a title with the power of friendship. And just a cool Mikal Bridges stats here that I found. He's hit the most corner threes in the NBA since he was drafted. That's a perfect fit for the Knicks. However, it was 5 unprotected firsts, which is always risky. It wouldn't shock me if you said the Pierce and Garnett trade to Brooklyn was still going down to this day, but it could be a situation like that. So Brooklyn's going to get an A+ from me. I love this offseason. It helped them restart everything and not only free up money to extend their captain, Nick Claxton, for 5 more years, but to trade the Bridges picks to get their original picks back from the Harden trade. They saw Reed Shepherd go and thought, shit, that should have been us, man. So they did a bunch of swaps and got their picks back, and they're ready for the tank.
Yeah, I give the Knicks a B. I love getting Mikal Bridges. I think that makes your team the second or third best team in the Eastern Conference, just behind the Boston Celtics. And you really want to make a case for the Sixers or something like that, I can understand it. However, I think the Knicks are the second best team in the East, especially with Mikal Bridges. They have the ability to win a championship. It's not just like phony stuff. I think this is a true championship contender. But the Brooklyn Nets got a ridiculous haul for Mikal Bridges, and the Pearson Garnett trade is the exact thing I thought of when I saw these trades. Not just because it's the Nets, but because a 2031 first, dude, like you might be god awful by that point. Like this is really all in for the Knicks. And if they don't win a championship with it, then it completely makes this move fail. And for the Nets, like what? Like they have so many picks now from the Knicks, and if they become the team that takes over from this, and the 25, 26, or not the 25 because that probably won't be a good pick, but the 27, 29, and 31 picks are all good because the Knicks just can't get better because they don't have any picks. Makes perfect sense.
They get Bryce James in the second round.
They could get whoever they want, whenever now, man. I give it an A+, and I think it's a trade that we will be talking about for a very, very long time.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, a big signing, Isaiah Hartenstein to the Oklahoma City Thunder, 3 years for $87 million.
I'm going to give this one a B+ too. You may not get too excited over a guy who's going to be around 8 points, 8 rebounds, but this could be a move that kickstarts a potential dynasty. You could tell that Jay Will, that's the one from Arkansas, not Santa Clara, was getting phased out as the center next to Chet. And hey, the Knicks fans call him iHeart for a reason. He's got a lot of heart. And Caruso helps the individual defense. Hartenstein will help the interior and the team defense. A very scary move that reminds me of Andrew Bogut to the Warriors many years ago, where even 8 points, 8 rebounds weighs much heavier on the entire team.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are looking at this move as an overpay because it's Isaiah Hartenstein, 8-8, nothing flashy. But when you need a need and you have a guy that's in free agency that completely feels that need, you're willing to overpay him because that's just how it is. And I think it fits this Oklahoma City roster very, very well while they have the money to go out to give to people. I give it a B because maybe it doesn't work out, and regardless, and maybe you're stuck with a bad contract. But I think as of right now, within this first year or so, it'll really help the Oklahoma City Thunder be a legitimate, bulldog in that Western Conference, up there with the Timberwolves and the Mavericks now, the Nuggets, instead of just, and then the 1 seed, maybe they can make the Western Conference Finals or something like that. Like your 1 seed, you got to be the favorite for the finals at that point. I think this helps him do that. Next up, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope opts out of his deal with the Nuggets and signs with the Orlando Magic. 3 years, $66 million.
This is going to be my only other A+ of the video. I know, right? I surprised myself too. But like I said earlier, if you have a surplus of money and not a lot of guys want to come, you have some tough decisions. All right. And I think, like I said, if you're trying to contend, the overpay can be worth it. You need perimeter defense. This is a guy with a lot of playoff experience. A really young team in Orlando needs that. And in 3 years from now, it may not even be an overpay. You can look at what the percentage of the contract is expected to be in 3 years from now on like the Spot Track site. And I've seen much worse than this for a pretty solid 5th to 6th option, we'll say.
Yeah. I give it a B. I don't think I'm not specifically hating on the contract. I'm not specifically hating on KCP. I just hating on the situation because KCP is a role player on a championship team is how I look at it. And Orlando's not going to be that championship team. And KCP just not going to be a player that steps up and gives you like 15 or 16 a game or something like that. That's just not how it's going to go for them. I think this, helps them be, what were they, the 5 seed last year? I think they probably stay the 5 seed. Like, there's not. I think Indiana's better than them. I think the Knicks are better than them. I think Boston's better than them. I think Philly's better than them, and I think you can say the Cavs as well too. Outside of that, then I think you're probably the Heat maybe as well too. Can be in there. So they're looking at 6 or 7, in my opinion. I just don't think it would be worth the money to do it. I think I'd rather go all in or try to fucking tank. I don't know. You want to do stuff with Paulo and you're a franchise that's been kind of exhausted for the last however long your franchise has been on since you let go of Dwight and let go of Shaq, but just not the move. However, it makes you okay. So
we're going to find out how good Paulo is. I'll tell you that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. He's going to get the reign, or he's had the reins, but now he's really going to get them in year 3 next year? Yeah, year 3. Next up, Paul George to the Philadelphia 76ers, 4 years, $212 million. Skyler, what do you think?
I think this has to be an A. Because Daryl Morey isn't in denial. He understands if they don't get to the finals over these next 2 years, Embiid is gone forever. This is your last shot, the last dance. They had a chance with Jimmy Butler, and this feels pretty similar to that season. And luckily for them, Kawhi plays in the West now. He won't hit a game winner to knock him out in the same round. So you just got to try to reload for these 2 years and see how far you can get, because you can't risk losing a potential – we'll say a potential Hall of Fame in Joel Embiid.
Yeah. Also helps too that Kawhi's on the Clippers, and the Clippers now suck because they just took one of their best players. So I give it an A as well too. I think this helps make Philly what they have been trying to be for a long time and be one of the best teams in the East. I just don't think that they're better than the Boston Celtics, and I do not think that they're better than the New York Knicks. And so you're going to need a lot of things to go your way if you want to get to where you want to be. I just don't think Philly is going to do that in this generation. However, I appreciate the effort to go and go try and do that. So I give it an A. Another one of the deals that they made to try to get to that spot was signing Eric Gordon to a 2-year deal. We don't know the money yet, but we do know it's 2. Skyler, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think if KCP is an A+ on my scale, then I have to give Eric Gordon an A-. The rumor is it's the veteran minimum. So Daryl Morey gets another one of his guys to come back, and things must be really messed up in Phoenix if he was willing to do this, if it's true that it's the veteran minimum. But here's another depth piece that has been one of the best 6-man options of the past 10 years. And I know he's much older, but they didn't really have a lot of other guards. So it's more so that, like you said, they're actually trying to see this. They're not being incompetent. They're giving it a go. That's where the high grade comes from. Not necessarily that it's going to work out.
Yeah, I give it a B+. I think this is, a solid veteran on your team. It's kind of like a JJ Redick type piece at this point. They also added Andre Drummond, I want to say yesterday or today or something like that. That's a solid bet as well, too. I think, again, these are moves that help you get to that championship level squad. You can't just have the stars. You got to have the background pieces to go with it as well, too. We saw that with the Warriors. Even when they had KD, the Sean Livingston, for this 2022 Warriors team that won even more, the Looney, the Porter, all these other dudes that help contribute to win games for you matter just as much as your stars, because you can't suck when your stars aren't in. And Eric Gordon and Andre Drummond helped them do that. Next up, oh baby, CP3 to San Antonio, Skyler, for $11 million, I want to say.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a B+, because I think San Antonio understands they're not going to be trying to win anything this season, even though we know Wemby's potential is through the frickin' roof here. CP3 just seems like something they're doing to try to not fuck up the timeline, because this is an extremely young team. CP3 to Wemby is going to be hilarious. And now Stephon Castle is in the building. One of my favorite players in the draft gets an elite mentor. This is going to be hard to mess up, I think.
Yeah, this is my favorite move of the offseason. I give it an A+. This is perfect. I saw like a meme on I want to say it's Twitter or TikTok, and it's like Wemby saying, "Oh, I want the ball," like right now or something like that. Chris Paul's like, okay, here you go. Like it's just like a stupid dumb meme, but it's like whenever Wemby wants the ball, he's gonna get it from Chris Paul. There is no Jeremy Sohan taking. Well, he's still on the team, but he's not playing point guard at this point. And Chris Paul's gonna get to play however much he wants to play with this team. Like he's not gonna get run out of the building in a year. He might average 15 and 12 or something like that with Wemby. Like he can really, really abuse this and get another all-star. He's not going to, win a ring with this move, but this is perfect for Wemby. This is perfect for Chris Paul. And if he wants to become a coach or something like that, this is the perfect segue into doing that.
Good point.
Next up, we got another trade. Malcolm Brogdon for Denny Avdia is practically the gist of it. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes with it. Washington got Brogdon, Carlton Carrington, who is the 14th overall pick in the draft, a 2029 first and 2 seconds. And the Portland just got Avdia. So, Scott, how do you think this goes?
I think this is a win-win, in my opinion. They're both going to get just a B because I know Alex joked about it, league-altering move. And I was like, shut up, man. You don't know what you're talking about. But they end up both getting a B. Washington gets Bub Carrington, who's an awesome lengthy guard from Pittsburgh. He had a triple-double in his first ACC game at 17 this year. Already a great defender. Malcolm Brogdon is going to be a mentor to him, who's also a pretty good defender at the guard position. We don't get a lot of those. And Portland doesn't want any more guards. They get the project and Denny Avdia, who can focus on scoring a little more. Scoot, Ayton, Klingon, probably going to be more facilitators. I think it's a win-win.
For Washington, I give it a B+. I think they got a good haul back for Denny. Brogdon, I think, is an underrated player. They get a rookie, which helps because that always kind of gives you the unknown factor, and they get some picks that are pretty far out. So I think that can work out well for you once it's all said and done. For Portland, I think it's a lot to give up to just get Denny. I don't know why you're giving up picks and guys you just drafted to, put your team as the 14th best team in the Western Conference instead of 15. Like they're just not at a level where they can compete right now. And I don't know if they understand that because this team sucks. And I don't like it. So I give it a C. Last one, Jonas Valanciunas to the Washington Wizards as well, too. 3 years, $30 million.
I'm going to give Washington a B- for this move. It's great value, and I think Valanciunas should be able to play through the entirety of the contract. I was just a little disappointed to see Washington's plan for Sarr is to play him at the 3 or the 4 when he already has a questionable jumper and he's 7'1". I mean, it's worked a couple of times with a guy like Lauri Markkanen, but that was on his 3rd team. And this is the 2nd pick in the draft. It's just a little confusing to me.
Yeah. I give it an A. I think Valanciunas wasn't really used as much as he should, especially late in that career with New Orleans. I don't even think you need to make him start. Like 3 for 30 isn't necessarily starter money in today's NBA. I think he can come off the bench and help Sarr in ways that can't really be taught as well from someone who isn't 7 foot. Help him rebound and help position, all these other things, and help him kind of how to use his body in a way that helps him. Because Valanciunas is a guy who has the ability to shoot, has the ability to do some things within the post. I think he's a solid player. And I think it helps Washington not compete, but I think it just helps make their team deeper. And that's exactly what they were trying to do, I think, in this move. So I give it an A.
All right.
On to halftime.
Yeah, so we'll kick off halftime here with a little bit more NBA draft talk. Like you said, it's not that these prospects have the greatest potential, but it's still fun to see where they land because that's 50% of it right there, where you end up. So how about we start with my favorite pick? I actually am not sure if you did them or not. You can go if you did have one.
I didn't do them because I don't know this draft class that well. I didn't want to make an opinion on someone that I don't have an opinion for.
Perfect, because I didn't do the MLB draft, so perfect.
Perfect.
All right, so how about I tell you about my favorite pick in the draft? I mentioned it a little bit earlier when we were talking on the party, but I didn't want to give this away. The Kings taking Providence point guard Devin Carter at 13. This one really excites me, and I know it excites Sacramento too. because they immediately traded Davion Mitchell to Toronto for Jalen McDaniels. This guy averaged 9 rebounds per game in the Big East at 6'2". That's all you need to know about how much this guy cares. This clears up space with the salary, possible Brandon Ingram trade coming next week. I've heard some rumors, but you couldn't have done this without clearing out another starter. And Devin Carter's capable of doing that. All right. Let's get to the least favorite. You could make the case for anybody in the top 10, but I didn't want to just be negative about them. So we'll go with a later pick. How about the Bucks taking AJ Johnson, a guard from Fresno who went to Australia and averaged like 3 points per game at pick number 23? You know, hey, we might come back and look at this draft in a couple years and go, hey, no one outside the lottery sucks, so who cares? But if you're trying to win right now, you have trouble finding coaches and veterans, and losing Giannis someday, then you should really go get a college player who could play right away. I mean, AJ Johnson could be in the G League for 4 more years. And you have guys like Terrence Shannon, Bailey Shireman, Tyler Kolek, all seniors, all available, all have a low floor. And that is my rant on the draft. Thank you.
Yeah. Moving on to a different draft, MLB mock draft, as the draft is just under 3 weeks away, or just under 2 weeks now, I want to say. I'm going to do a top 10.
I'm excited.
Probably not more in the future. I don't think we're going to get past that because it's just so hard to predict some of the stuff that happens with the underslots, overslots, and all that stuff. But starting off, number 1 overall picked, Cleveland Guardians. What a scenario. You know, you're so good this year, and now you get to add somebody with the number 1 overall pick. I think they take Travis Bazzana. He's too good of a prospect to pass up on. And I know it doesn't – people don't draft based off of need. But when you're getting a player that's this close to the MLB and your team is that good, then I think you kind of factors in some way. However, Bazzana is too good of a prospect to pass up on. Whether you have Jimenez at second, Naylor first base, you know, move one of them DH, or not Jimenez at DH, obviously, because he's one of the best defense players in the league, but maybe move Naylor to DH in the coming future, or you know, Bazzana maybe plays third and J-Ram plays something else
Left
or
field.
something like that. He played there before. Like, I don't know exactly how it forms out, but I think Bazzana is too good of a player to pass up on, and I think you'd have to take him at number 1. Next up, Cincinnati Reds on the clock. They take Charlie Condon. Feels like a layup. Now at this point, if Bazzana goes 1, Condon's going 2. Just another player that would fit well in Cincinnati because of his power and how hitter-friendly that park is. Again, another guy that you're not going to have to wait 3 years for. Hopefully just a year or 2 max with him in the minors. Then he should be up, which helps out a ton. Number 3, I think it's either Chase Burns or Hagen Smith here for the Colorado Rockies. I think they're definitely going to attack a pitcher, and I think they go Hagen Smith here, who I think is probably going to be the higher-rated guy according to scouts. I think it's just a little too much intensity from Chase Burns. And sometimes, you know, that can help you at the college level, but I think it can also hurt you when you're looking at scouts and just the strain that guys put on his body 100% of the time. I like Hagen Smith a ton, though. He's got, you know, 97, 98, 99 from the left side, and he's big and tall and completely dominant. He could be a guy that pitches in multiple all-star games, I think, for this team. Maybe not in Colorado because it is the Colorado Rockies, but you got to address the pitching at some point if you want to get better. You got all these prospects who are hitters. Go get somebody to pair with Dollander. I think Hagen Smith can be that guy. I actually no. Did he play with Chase Burns? I think they did. Maybe for a year in Tennessee.
1 year.
Regardless, doesn't matter. They're not taking it. Number 4, the Oakland A's. Jack Caglione. This is one of the biggest layups in the draft class. Caglione seems to be the guy that always keeps falling to 4. And from what I've seen from all these mocks and what I've heard a ton from scouts and, you know, people saying in MLB columns and whatnot, this is the prospect, though, that can make or break the A's future. Like, he's the guy who can turn into something and, you know, be a face of a franchise and, you know, get people to buy tickets to go to games because I think will end up being a hitter only, but he's got the ability to play both ways. He has 100 in his left arm and 115, 16 mile-an-hour exit velocities coming off of his bat, whether it's wood or metal, it doesn't matter. He's hitting the ball hard. and has superstar potential. However, I think he can also fizzle out if the swing and miss is something that goes into the minor leagues and in the major leagues as well too.
What I'm afraid
Number five.
about before the fifth pick, I apologize. I just figured we should talk for a second here about the A's since we know a lot about them. I'm so scared that they're gonna still underslot because they don't really have a home right now. They don't care about selling tickets. How likely is it that they would go with, not that Montgomery's bad, but a Montgomery or Bryce Rayner?
I think it would have been a lock if Montgomery was healthy. I think with him not being healthy, there's just too many question marks for the A's to take a chance on him when they need kind of a guy that can really lock in for them. The college or high school shortstops, I think, are too far away for you to look at. I think what the plan is you want to take a guy this year and next year. And Jacob Wilson, I think we saw a perfect plan with that as well too, where they are going to be up right before you go to Vegas. You plan on Jacob Wilson will be in his third or fourth year. Caglione should be in his second or third. The guy you take next year, whether that's Ethan Holiday, whoever the fuck it is in their first or second year, and you have these three guys who are like, okay, these are our centerpieces. These are who we're going to advertise and all this stuff. I think Caglione is a name that a lot of people know or will know by that point, and I think that helps out to that.
I'm down with that plan.
Moving on. Yeah. Number 5. This is where I think Bryce Rayner goes to the Chicago White Sox. They go ahead and take a prep shortstop because they're the White Sox, and they have Colson Montgomery. It doesn't matter. Taking best available. They take the first high school player off the board. A lot of potential with high schoolers. I think there's a lot of upside and a lot of downside to taking them as well too. I think the White Sox are willing to take it because their farm system sucks. They're going to suck for a while, and that rebuild is, I would say, just starting because they were bad the last 2 years as well too. But it's really officially starting this past couple of years. Number 6, the Kansas City Royals on the clock. They take a big bat, and Nick Kurtz, he is going to rake. That's his biggest thing. He's going to hit the ball hard. He's going to hit the ball out of the ballpark. And that's what Kansas City needs. And I think more than now than ever, it feels like there's teams drafting based off of needs because there are so many close to MLB ready players. Whether last year we saw Skeens, Langford, Jacob Wilson's now about to come up.
Yeah.
Dylan Cruz is on the doorstep in AAA. And I think Nick Kurtz is another one of those dudes that takes 2-3 years max in the minor leagues. And with the need for power and a consistent good bat in the lineup for Kansas City, I think Nick Kurtz is exactly that. Number 7, the St. Louis Cardinals on the clock. They take my X factor in the draft, Christian Moore, second baseman from Tennessee. I loved watching this dude play in the College World Series. He's electric. He hits the ball hard. He's the modern day guy who would jump up in a draft board. I think Pipeline has him at number 12 right now. I see him going higher than that. I see him being a top 10 pick, and I think St. Louis would be a perfect team to go ahead and take a chance on him and get a guy that could be playing second base for them in the future. Number 8, this pick fits perfectly. The Angels on the clock. They take Chase Burns. And he's probably in the big leagues by the end of the year because that's how they do things. They did it last year with Shane. They did it the year before that with Zach Nato. They did the year before that with Sam Bachman. It just seems like every single year that they bring up a guy and he's immediately in the league. And Chase Burns is probably the guy that could play in the big leagues tomorrow if you really wanted him to. Number 9, Pittsburgh is on the clock here. They're in a weird spot because I don't think they need to address anything by need with how their franchise is. And so they go ahead and take one of the best all-around players in the draft in J.J. Weatherholt. He falls to 9. He's a guy who could go 1 if Cleveland wants to underslot. I think this is the perfect guy for Pittsburgh to just kind of just throw out there wherever in a couple of years, and he ends up being okay for them because that's kind of what he can do. He's a good athlete. He's a good hitter, can really do everything on the ball field. And so I think Weatherholt at number 9 would make a lot of sense. And then number 10, Washington is on the clock. They could go in a few different directions here, but I do have him going with the prep infield, outfield, or whatever. Connor Griffin is a guy where again, you don't really have a need to go and rush a guy to the big leagues. You have time with these young guys, whether it's Abrams, Wood just coming up, Dylan Cruz coming up, Robert Hassel. You have time to kind of just let a guy develop in the
Or
minor leagues
mold
for
them
a
into
few
what you
years.
need, either way, right? If they
Exactly.
do get good.
Yeah, he can play the infield, he can play the outfield, and time will tell. And I think this is the perfect guy to figure out what you need and help him kind of go into that spot. And he's also really good hitter as well too, right-handed on both sides, of course. And I think he can be an impact player down the line for Washington. But that's where we're at right now, through 10.
Very nice.
Maybe more in the future. I don't know. We'll see.
Alex does not like JJ Weatherholt. I wanted to let you know.
I think like Vance Honeycutt.
He probably doesn't know who that is.
Exactly. Moving on, though, from our layups and bold, or to our layups and bold predictions. Last week was rough, 1 for 4. The one that we did get right was my layup, Philadelphia over Detroit on Wednesday. That was a Turnbull start for Philly. He's been good at every single time he's got an opportunity to pitch in the rotation. He does it there as well, too. And goes green. Skyler had Detroit over the Angels on Thursday. That did not happen, unfortunately. Logan O'Hoppe hit there, and I want to say it was that night, and screwed that one over. But that's a red. This week, I have Houston winning on Wednesday against the Toronto Blue Jays. That is a Ronel Blanco start against Yusei Kikuchi.
What is the deal with us betting Blanco? It's every week.
Houston's hot, though, and I think that's a guy that you got to go for there. So yeah, give me Houston.
I'm going to go with another Texas team to win. On Friday night, the Rangers are going to beat Tampa Bay. That's Michael Lorenzen, my guy from Fullerton, going up against Aaron Savalier. Rough season. Tampa Bay's hot. That is not going to last. Texas is pissed off. Let's get them a win on Friday night.
Last week, I had Chicago White Sox first 5 against the Dodgers on Wednesday. That did not happen. Skyler had Houston over the Mets on Friday. That was the one game that Grimace struck, and the Mets did actually win that one, so that's red there. Red for both of us. This week, I have Arizona over the Dodgers on Thursday. That is a Zach Gallen start versus Landon Mack. I think the way how Zach Gallen performed against the A's this past weekend, I know two completely different lineups in the Dodgers and the A's, but he looked really good. I think he can carry that over into the start as well, too.
So I got an interesting take on another MLB game this Friday night. I'm going to go with the Rockies to win at home against Cole Reagans and the Royals. I'm not trying to upset you. I just have a feeling Kansas City's been so bad on the road. They're going to have a blow-up game one of these nights. So I'm going to pick Kyle Freeland at home in front of the big crowd to do as well as he possibly can, man.
Yeah, that's one of the best Rockies pitchers in their franchise history.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Regardless, that's going to do it, though, for episode 199. Next time we see y'all, it'll be
200.
Episode 200. We'll be in the twos, which is really pretty cool. Still figuring out what we want to talk about in that one. But we will see you guys then. Skyler, you got any closing remarks? Happy 4th of July. Happy Canada Day.
Yes, both of them equally important to us. My closing remarks will probably be I would grade Kyle Anderson probably around a C+. Pretty good defender, pretty good passer. But other than that, it's a mystery. So we'll see.
I don't got nothing.
All right. Well, we'll see you next Tuesday, episode 200.